The human race was always your favorite, Doctor. But now, there is no human race. There is only the master race.
Yeah, I'm gonna... Oh, just fuck you. Fuck you with a massive fucking spiky dildo and no consent, you stupid skeleton-faced crap-haired bastard! This is it. The big one. Well, the biggest so far. The End of Time, Episode 1. Why'd this take so long? Simple. I spent nearly 40 minutes on the 60-ish minute Voyage of the Damned. This is nearly 2.5 hours of crap Doctor Who. I didn't want to spend the amount of time necessary to make the review. Fuck, I'd rather this episode didn't even exist. I'd personally cut Welshie's hands off if it meant that these episodes didn't exist. Fuck, I'm fairly sure he'd cut off his own hands if that meant that these didn't exist. The only question would be, how do you cut both of your hands off? Oh well, fuck it. The episodes exist so no one has to cut his hands off. But they can if they want. I'd do it myself, but by the time this maelstrom of Shizer is over, I'm fairly sure that the most complicated thing I'm going to be able to handle in the next couple of days is strip myself naked and cry in a dark room. And before I begin, in this show I have a tendency to bitch about canon. And while no one's asked me about this so far, I'm fairly sure that someone someday will want to, so here we go.
A brief note on canon.
When I do these reviews, I go for my own personal canon of Doctor Who. Unlike Star Trek, there are no hard rules as to what's canon in Doctor Who, and because the show is so long and so fucking contradictory that it managed to show Atlantis being destroyed for different reasons more than twice, you are forced to pick and choose what you accept and what you don't. Apart from the new show, there's the old show, the novels, the audio dramas, years of comics, books, a couple of animated things, some radio dramas, TV specials, the odd stage play, and 1 or 2 video games. Even with access to a time machine, bad writing, and godlike powers, it's impossible for all of this stuff to have happened. So you have to pick and choose, and everything I complain about canon-wise in these reviews is down to it not being in my personal canon. If yours is different, brilliant. Write a comment about why in the comments. I suppose I could try to be impartial, but it's my show and it's my right to be as small and bitchy as I want. And besides, most of you have seen me. I am fucking massive. It's only fair that I get to be small once in a while.
It is said that in the final days of planet Earth, everyone had bad dreams.
The final days of planet Earth. Oh, pointless attempting to sound like something amazing is going to happen which will later be proved to be complete bollocks. Will you ever get old? Oh yeah, you did. Long before this episode ever happened. So our off-screen narrator was one of the many tragic survivors of Mae West's last film, Sextet. It was terrible, the living envied the dead. In a way, he dramatically talks about how all the humans are having bad dreams about the upcoming events.
Each and every one of those people had dreamt of the terrible things to come.
I can really sympathize. I saw the trailers for this too. And the reality is so much worse. Okay, so the narrator, who's Rassilon, spoiler alert, even though that only means anything to you if you're a serious Whovian. And if you're a serious Whovian, then you already know he's Rassilon, so that's kinda, sorta, bit pointless. So why is he spending his time narrating about this? Frankly, it sounds like he knows he's talking to the audience. And why is he talking about Christmas?
The human race did gather in the celebration of a pagan rite to banish the cold and the dark.
I half expect him to turn to the camera and say, "Happy Christmas to all of you at home."
Incidentally, Happy Christmas to all of you at home.
Yeah, the video of that actually happening was lost when the BBC mixed up the term storage with burn the fuck out of that shit and destroyed most of Doctor Who's earliest episodes. Okay, so how does he fucking know what the humans are dreaming about? He's across the universe and in a completely different point in time. Actually, fuck that. How the fuck does the narrator even know that they're dreaming about shit? How are the humans dreaming about shit that's not happened yet? And why the fuck is this already forgotten to have a point? This old man is Wilfred, the Doctor's companion Donna's grandfather. The old man who talked to the Doctor in Voyage of the Damned, and frankly, still one of the best things to happen in Russell T Davies' era. He can remember the bad dreams that the narrator talked about, but no one else can. Why? Reality as portrayed in this said so. He wanders into a church, open late at night in exactly the same way that most churches aren't, and stares at a stained glass window. This woman in white assumes that he's staring at the tiny TARDIS in the corner of the stained glass window. Admittedly, he was, but how the fuck would she know that? Oh wait, this is the era where people develop sudden psychic powers, omniscience, or anything else that the story requires at that moment. So, having talked to Wilfred about the Doctor, this woman in white vanishes, ready to reappear when the script needs someone to be enigmatic. Oh, and what are the bad dreams that only Wilfred can remember and the narrator who is actually Rassilon knows all about? A much repeated shot of the Master laughing that looks like it was filmed in my review room. Horrifying! So, like I sort of said, Russell T Davies had a tendency to have people be as all-knowing as required. And for some reason he decided that the Ood, who were introduced as a kind but semi-retarded slave race of aliens in the Impossible Planet, should actually be the most powerful psychic force in the universe. Okay, so how the fuck did they get enslaved before the events of the Impossible Planet? And did they really not try to get some revenge after they were freed from slavery in the planet of the Ood? Well, of course not, because they're nice. So nice that no other corporations or groups came to re-enslave the Ood, who are so super powerful and unwilling to defend themselves that they managed to get enslaved once. Anyway, they sent a message back in time and across the universe to the Doctor just in time for the end of the previous episode, The Watchers of Mars, which was the best part of the David Tennant farewell parade of death. Best because at no point did I get the urge to insert a cistern into someone's throat while watching it. So, if you're keeping tabs, we're 3 minutes into this episode and we already have one person and an entire race who are capable of making space and time their psychic bitch. And about 100 years earlier, the race were not capable of stopping a bunch of humans enslaving them. But I suppose I should give Russell T Davies a tiny bit of credit because this thing is so fucking stupid. I'm talking about the powers and their advancement and all that sort of shit. The Doctor himself comments on it.
Because all of this is way too fast. Not just the city, I mean your ability to call me. Reaching all the way back to the 21st century. Something's accelerating your species way beyond normal.
But that might actually make it worse because he never actually explains what's happened. For Russell T Davies, enigmaticness is an all-purpose plot hole filler. But what's the Doctor been up to since the Waters of Mars? Well, he's been taking every single part of the Tennant characterization and Davies' writing that I fucking hate, and it's been in serious training to make it even worse.
You will come with me.
Hold on. Better lock the TARDIS. See? Like a car. I locked it like a car.
I really don't know if I should be more angry at the writer for thinking that the Doctor would think the Ood would know what the fuck a car is, or the writer for thinking that the Doctor would fucking say that. I'll split the difference. Go fuck yourselves. Anyway, Ood Sigma from the planet of the Ood is still wearing the same slave outfit he had before the liberation. And that was decades ago. Insert obvious comments here. And the Ood are still as nice as ever, which is a great pity because I'd like to see a return to the Ood planet where they're wreaking psychic revenge on humanity for enslaving them. They could have the bad guy from Planet of the Ood who was turned into one as a karmic punishment return as one of the good guys, having accepted his new place. Anyway, once I stop talking about shit and we get on with the episode, we finally find out why the Doctor was summoned. Some Ood monks and their leader who has a differently shaped head than the rest of them. That's a bit racist, isn't it? Choosing a leader based on how much his head looks like a brain? Fuck it. They wanted the Doctor here to give him a message. They sent a message across space and time to tell the Doctor that they wanted him to come to them so they could give him a message. You fucking dicks.
Events are taking shape so many years ago and yet changing the now.
Anyway, the leader's voiced by Brian Cox. Now, depending on whether you're thinking about Brian Cox the actor or Brian Cox the physicist, insert me saying yes that one or no not that one right here. So why is this the one Ood who can A, speak English without a translation device, and B, be voiced by someone other than Silas Garson? I have no fucking clue. Why is he voiced by Brian Cox? It's expensive being Scottish. Anyway, the Master's laughter is so over the top that it's freaking the Ood out as well. Kinda shit for a species who can make their psychic abilities cross space and time, guys. The Ood leader shows the Doctor images of what's going on the Earth right now. Or rather, several hundred years ago in the past as though they're happening now. Boring as fuck, boring as fuck, boring as fuck. Just so you know, there are now at least 3 characters who know a fuckload just because the script says they do. Apparently the fact that the Doctor didn't instantly answer their call in the Waters of Mars means that the shit's getting fucked up in the past right now. When, from their point of view, shit got fucked up hundreds of years ago and almost everyone involved in this died centuries ago. The guy has a time machine and could go back in time before said shit got fucked up. Simple as. But hey, who needs shit to make sense and be internally consistent? Definitely not the person who wrote this episode. Anyway, here's a not-so-quick diversion about the Master. Just in case you've never actually seen Doctor Who and only watched my reviews, the Master is another Time Lord. Basically, he's Moriarty to the Doctor's Sherlock Holmes. And last time we saw him, he was Prime Minister of the UK for very, very stupid reasons that have very little to do with how the UK's political system actually works. But that's for the eventual review of those episodes. He killed a fuckload of people, danced like an idiot, came second in an Oscaring Frank Gorshin as a Riddler impersonation contest, and generally made Eric Roberts' version of the Master look butch. Most of the stuff he did was eventually undone because the status quo is God, and he was shot by his wife. Now, apparently he had disciples who thought he was awesome, and are planning on bringing him back using magic. Yes, magic. Now, the Master was shot dead during the last of the Time Lords, and if you watch that episode you'll notice, well, first of all, if you actually decide to watch the episode, I'm very, very sorry. But when the Master was killed, you'll see his wife had a glassy stare as she did it. And the Master had a history of hypnotizing people. If you must have the Master return to life, then surely it would be simpler and less fucking mental to have her be part of the plan. She kills him once he's been defeated as part of an escape plan, and then she brings him back to life. Rather than what they do here and have her being against his return and having him have disciples who use fucking magic, which has just been pulled out of someone's ass. And finally, one of the few things that wasn't undone in the Great Reset button of the Last of the Time Lords was the assassination of the American President-elect. So-called because Russell T Davies apparently doesn't know the difference between the President and the President-elect.
My name is Arthur Coleman Winters, President-elect of the United States of America.
How it looked to everyone watching was the Prime Minister of the UK, live on television, had the American President killed, and then was shot to death by his wife a second later. It looks like he went nuts and she bravely killed a dangerous man. Why the fuck is she in jail? If the UK was still around after the Prime Minister had the President killed, you'd think the USA would press for the brave woman who avenged him to receive a very, very lenient prison sentence of, say, 2 weeks with hourly orgasms followed by a quick immigration to the USA, a job on Fox News and deification. And lastly, what are the chances of the woman being in charge of the Master-worshipping coven being the warden in charge of the jail where the Master's wife is being held? Anyway, on to the Master's resurrection via necromancy, which is happening at the same time as the Doctor is racing to try and stop it, because you really need to race when you're a fucking time machine. The Master's wife is being made to take part in the resurrection because one of the ingredients of the magic potion to bring him back is her saliva. Which I'm going to assume I imagine because that's too fucking stupid to be real. Especially because her saliva is being played by lipstick. And just because this shitcake of stupid needs to get even taller, it turns out that the Master's wife has had someone infiltrate the ceremony with an anti-Master resurrection potion. Now, let's look at this shitcake of stupid layer on layer. A. The Master's wife turns against him for some reason. B. She shoots him for some reason. C. She ends up in jail populated by people devoted to the Master for some reason. D. They are able to create a magic potion from her saliva played by her lipstick to bring him back for some reason. E. She managed to infiltrate someone who headed the Master into the jail and the cult for some reason. F. She managed to get them assigned to the same team of worshippers who were planning on bringing the Master back for some reason. G. She managed to get her mole assigned to take part in the ritual to bring him back for some fucking reason. And H. She had to, in jail, have someone invent some magical anti-Master resurrection potion and have someone smuggle it into the fucking jail for some fucking reason. Now, are we done? Of course not. The anti-Master resurrection potion needs to be able to make the entire building explode. And do you know what makes this all even worse? The Master is really good at hypnotizing people. Delgado, Ainley, or even fucking Eric Roberts could have hypnotized her into shooting herself in the fucking garden the time it took him to say, "No!" Anyway, the Master survives because he always survives. He once escaped a collapsing parallel reality with no TARDIS and literally no way out, while everyone in the reality was about to fucking kill him. So escaping an exploding jail is just child's play. Anyway, the Doctor arrives and it's too late. He's arrived halfway through the CGI shot rendering. And in a rare moment of lucidity, Russell T Davies at the last minute decided not to have the Doctor randomly meet up with an American newsreader who's reporting on the previous night's explosion of a jail in England. Thank you, Russell. Thank you. Whatever drugs you did that day, take more of them.
I think we might be in luck, darling. It's the footage from Broadfeld Prison the night it burnt down. Take a look at this.
Yep, that's the Master escaping. Either that or it's the Flash, going for a streak after a night out with the Justice League and desperately trying to find Star City. And just so you know, Mr. Mysterious Villainy Guy, that's not a prison that was burned down. That's a prison that was blown the fuck up. There's a slight difference.
Do you think it's him?
So, these two, who are evil. No, that's the Master. So they knew the Master was in there. So they needed to have someone infiltrated into the Master's resurrection cult. If any more people turn out to be plants, they'll be a shoo-in for the most infiltrated, religiously motivated terrorist group in the world. So, because this guy is evil, he has his own mansion, an army of little trained minions, and worst of all, he misquotes Alan Rickman in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Christmas is cancelled!
He's found some technology called the Gate, which will do things, and possibly act as some sort of a gate. And check it out, the computers are doing things that computers don't do. This astounds me. Surely the people who designed the little green spinning things use computers. Surely they know that their own computers don't do that while they're working on something that's got nothing to do with making little green spinny things. Surely they know that if their computer did that crap while they were working on non-green spinny thing related work, then they'd never get any work done. So, Bernard Cribbins is still one of the few good things in late Tennant era Doctor Who. He collects a bunch of fellow older unemployed actors and convinces them to split up and try to find David Tennant. I could be wrong about this, but I get the feeling to save money they just rounded them up and told them to find David Tennant in London and filmed the results. So, could the fact that they're going looking for the Doctor indicate a self-aware comment on the fact that Russell T Davies' Doctor Who spent most of the fucking time in London? I doubt it. It's probably just a case of, we need to search for the Doctor! Let's use the same place we always use! London! Meanwhile, on a wasteland, a woman's chosen the world's worst burger van patch. The Master walks towards them ominously while they all act like they think they're in fucking Detroit.
Don't forget tomorrow night, Christmas broadcast. President Obama. He's promised to end the recession.
This mistaking the UK for the USA always seems to happen with John Sims involved in Doctor Who. In The Sound of Drums, they seem to think that the Prime Minister is elected the same way the US President is. But I'll cover that when I review that piece of crap. I've got my hands busy with this piece of crap. So what's the Master up to? Something subtle, I bet. So the Master's body is degenerating or something because of the anti-Master resurrection potion. And so he's taken to eating very fast, being mentaler than last time, and lastly, turning into Skeletor.
I'm splitting my sides. I am hilarious.
As reimagined by the Sci-Fi Network. So all this logically means he has to kill people and replace them with embarrassing-looking Halloween skeletons. And it's times like this I wish Russell T Davies had stuck with his original idea for what the Master should do in this episode, i.e. become a rent boy and murder his clients after fucking them. This was the moment when I briefly wanted to burn all of my Doctor Who memorabilia in a Viking-style funeral. The moment where he fucking leapt into the air like Zsa Zsa Saturna. Now, I love that film, but it's supposed to be a silly and camp parody of superheroes. Anyway, I was strong, I didn't burn anything, because I thought to myself, it could be worse. He could be firing lightning bolts from his hands. And sometimes, I fucking hate my life. I sense a great disturbance in the force. It's as though an entire country watched something so fucking stupid that they suddenly want to kill their neighbour to help them escape the pain. Oh well, at least he wasn't firing lightning bolts out of his hands. So the Master, for no reason at all, starts to hit a random barrel 4 times, and then another 4, and then another, and oh sweet, they're trying to convince us he's about to regenerate because of the he will knock 4 times crap. When the Master's not fucking knocking anything. And even when the Doctor does finally hear the 4 knocks, he still doesn't regenerate right after. So it's all just a fucking tease! Anyway, Tennant's hearing is so good he hears the Master on the other side of this industrial, harbour, wasteland thing. Or Tennant deliberately took the long way around, because frankly it looks like the Master was hitting the barrel about 20 feet away from him. And then, running.
Some people stand in the darkness, afraid to step into the light. Some people need to help somebody when the edge of surrender's inside. Don't you worry, it's gonna be alright. 'Cause I'm always ready, I won't let you out of my sight.
Oh, I hope there's not going to be a fight. The last thing you want is for your fight scene to take place somewhere that looks like where they filmed Battle of the Bone.
Please, let me help. You're burning up your own life force. Oh my gosh, Doctor, you're a dinosaur. Out of my way. Did we do it? Yeah. Is that him?
Oh, so your plan to split up and find the Doctor thing was actually code for wander through a shipyard where you find him 3 minutes later. The guy who wrote this has won awards, people. He has won fucking awards.
But you never said he was a looker. He's gorgeous. Take a photo.
Not bad, eh? Be nice.
I'm Minnie. Minnie the Menace.
This scene just reinforces my idea that they just got some older unemployed actors who wanted to meet David Tennant and film the results. June Whitfield, you minx.
Is that your hand, Minnie?
Good boy.
Lady, please, he's old enough to be your grandfather. Time's about 80. So the Doctor and Bernard Cribbins go to a cafe and have a chat, because the Master running around and eating people doesn't really matter that much. After all, who really gives a shit about the homeless? The Doctor wants to know what's special about Wilfred because they randomly keep meeting up and everything needs to be significant. Of course, apart from, spoilers, him being the reason the Doctor regenerates, there's nothing special about him. It's called coincidence. Although my one-line explanation about this makes it almost sound not entirely stupid, this scene really rams home something I don't like about New Who in general and Russell T Davies' era in particular. Everything is planned and prophesized. Everything is dramatic and important and should be said as though it's going to be in the trailer. In the classic series, the Doctor would meet some people a few times. It wasn't important, it just happened. Now, even if there's no reason for it, they need to act like there is. You know what's actually important about Bernard Cribbins? He was in one of the 1960s Doctor Who movies and fought the Daleks. There you go, spin a fan-wiki story about that. Not this, you're important because I met you randomly twice crap. You met Sabalom Glitz randomly twice in 2 seasons. In 2 different locations as 2 different Doctors. And discounting the times you met him that involved Donna, you met Bernard Cribbins randomly twice, in 2 seasons in nearly the same location as the same Doctor. Why the fuck didn't you ask Sabalom why he was important? Simple! Sabalom probably would have tried to sell the TARDIS. Oh, emo time.
I'm going to die.
You know who faced the Master knowing from the start of the story that he was going to die at the end and didn't act like a childish little shit in the face of it? The 4th Doctor. He saw the Watcher, a representation of his next incarnation, and knew for a fact that he'd regenerate soon because of it. Did he whine? Did he complain? Did he cry? Fuck no! He went out in that bit of the studio pretending to be a satellite dish. He didn't even mention that photo of the Master standing in front of Anthony and Lynn. He fell to his death. And then he smiled at his companions as he died. 10 acts as though he's actually going to die. When he admits he'll probably just regenerate, and he even acts like that's death. And that the Doctor who walks away isn't him anymore. If that's how he thinks, then why doesn't he act like he only came into existence after the 9th Doctor died?
Lived too long.
Of course he can't, because he knows for a fact that the man who walks away will be him. He's just being a whiny little fuck to a man who, due to his age, is probably somewhat soon going to actually die. Lots of fans don't like Colin Baker's Doctor. He was loud, arrogant, and didn't give much of a fuck about people. But outside of the twin dilemma, when he was still in his post-regeneration weirdness, he was never a coward. This cowardice is why the 10th Doctor is probably the single most unlikable incarnation of the character. Why I ultimately was not sad to see him go, and why when he dies I'm going to play this song. So, sorry about that tangent. They go out of their way to remind us that if Cribbins' granddaughter Donna, the Doctor's last companion, sees the Doctor or anything related to him, she'll remember all the funky stuff they did together and her brain will melt. It's a long and pretty stupid story, and you can see it in Journey's End if you want your brain to melt. Or you can wait a long time till my eventual review. So in the months since the Doctor's been gone, Donna's got herself engaged. Now, that might seem fair enough, but she was mentally regressed to who she was when she first met the Doctor. When she was in the middle of being married. Apart from wondering what exactly they told her happened in the year or so she's lost, and when her husband suddenly vanished. Apart from all that, her last husband got himself killed worshipping evil giant alien spiders. The poor bastard she's engaged to now probably worships evil giant alien termites.
And so it came to pass that the players took their final places, making ready the events that were to come.
Hello, I'm Timothy Dalton. Although the character I'm currently playing has no reason to be poetic and overblown in talking about the events that are currently happening, in a completely different time and place, but I shall continue to do so anyway. Why the fuck are the most incesty couple this side of Caligula and Drusilla sitting on thrones and drinking champagne while staring at that? Jeez, I've seen more impressive screensavers. Daily. Also, Rassilon seems to not understand how time zones work.
As earth rolled onwards into night, the people of that world did sleep.
Of course, maybe it's just less poetic to say about 40% of the earth did sleep, and then as they woke up, others slept, and never did 100% of the people of the earth fall asleep because... Woo! Okay, I'm sorry, angry-looking former James Bond. I'm sorry, I'll shut up. So, Tennant finds the Master, who's on the same wasteland again. Even though about 2 minutes ago we'd seen that he'd escaped and hidden a clock tower or something. So how does Tennant react to the Master noticing he's found him? By standing there dramatically so the camera gets a nice pan. I've heard defenders of Russell T Davies' era saying he was going for realism in characters, but I'm sorry. This just doesn't happen. This isn't realistic on any level. Well, except they got the colour of the sky right. Mostly. This is opera. It's over the top, uber dramatic, and everything is the most important thing ever! But unlike no opera, there's no badass singing or interesting use of colour. Which means this is opera with the bits that are good surgically removed. Okay, I think that hurt me and the rest of the audience more than the Doctor. Try as they might, that's nowhere near as cool as the Seventh Doctor's explosion walking the greatest show in the galaxy. Why? Tennant's lots of feet away from the blast. In McCoy's one, they used too many explosives, set it off too early, and he still walked off like he didn't give a shit because he knew they wouldn't be able to go and film it again like that. And I'm not entirely sure, but I think they lost some of his costume too. So, yes, I am impressed by this. I am so very impressed that the only thing I can think about is how bad a shot the Master is. And that the Doctor's reaction times are so bad that he's probably smoked an elephant full of ganja. Oh, and finally, why didn't 2 blasts of his lightning crap set the Doctor's flammable as fuck clothes on fire? When 1 blast set the non-flammable ground on fire?
Do you remember my father's land back home?
Sorry, my personal canon is Longbarrow's explanation of Time Lord reproduction because it's far more interesting than the new series is, so as far as I'm concerned, you never had a father. Longbarrow was Time Lords being created by taking genetic material from all members of a family and merging them into a new person in a giant genetic loom. The new series has Time Lords acting and fucking like regular humans in silly hats. For crimes against imagination alone, I go with Longbarrow.
Look at us now.
Yeah, what changed? You grew a beard, got trapped in a black hole and tried to conquer the universe. A lot. But as much as I hate John Sims as the Master, I think maybe he's better in this than he was in Last of the Time Lords. There, he was a bad Frank Gorshin as a Riddler impersonator. In this scene, he's desperate and slightly more realistically mad. It's just a pity that he'll soon be back to his old games, i.e. being an irritating prick. So the Master grabs the Doctor's head to make him hear the drums that allegedly made him insane. Which is odd because he never mentioned them and he wasn't really mad before the new series.
Listen.
Retticon, 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 retticon. This is a retcon, retcon, retcon.
I heard it.
Anyway, if all it took for another Time Lord to hear them and realise they were real was grabbing their head like that, then why didn't he do it years beforehand? Even after he became a criminal, he was on Gallifrey with immunity once and in hiding another time. Surely he could have seen a psychiatrist or sought help somehow. The Time Lords are a bit psychic. I'm sure they would have at least been interested in giving him some drugs or something. I mean, we have drugs that we give to people who hear annoying things in their mind. Surely they could as well. And even if, as they indicate, that the Doctor couldn't hear it before because it's just his insanity, surely if something's inside an insane person's head and you're psychic, you could be able to hear it too, because you're reading their perceptions and not the reality that surrounds them. And if, as you said in The Sound of Drums, that he first heard them at the age of 8, then why the fuck did the Time Lords let a crazy person become a Time Lord? It's a rank, not a species. Time Lords are genetically altered Gallifreyans. And lastly, about this subject, regeneration changes pretty much everything about someone. It can make the sane mad, the good evil, it changes your likes, your personality, can change your race, your sex, and according to one doctor, even your species. So why didn't it destroy The Sound of Drums? Okay, rant over. Okay, another rant begins. He can already jump into the air, why the fuck did he have to use his lightning too? Why the fuck am I watching an episode where the Master, a man who was once so suave, they could kill your entire race in front of you and then seduce you? He didn't actually do that, because it would be uncouth to seduce someone grieving, but he could have. Why the fuck is the Master using lightning blast to make rocket jumps? When did this turn into a bad computer game adaptation of a terrible cartoon? Why isn't this fucking Doctor Who anymore? Why is this fucking... I want to fuck with a walrus! Fuck, 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 fuck! Skull-faced piece of pigeon shit! So, in seconds, Tennant catches up with him. Wow, I'm so glad that he took the effort to fly off like that.
Take me to your leader!
Okay, these are obviously the little trained minions of the incesty villain couple. I'd recognize those black masks anywhere. But how do they know what will knock a Time Lord out? They're kind of aliens. Aspirin is lethal to a Time Lord.
Doctor, take one of these.
Oh, metabolism. They'd probably kill Major.
You don't know what the fuck you're doing, and if you do know what the fuck you're doing, then how the fuck do you know what the fuck you're doing? And if you were willing to kidnap someone from London via an evil helicopter using your army of little trained minions, why are you unwilling to shoot a twat in a brown coat? Anyway, eventually, the over-the-topness of his performance gives Tennant an aneurysm. The next day, it's Christmas, and Donna's given Bernard Cribbins a book named after the original title of the X-Files movie. It's the autobiography of Joshua Naismith, the incesty villain guy, who was essentially Obama but evil, and British, and in love with his daughter, and not a politician. So he's all of those things I mentioned, and black, and charismatic, and wrote a book. What a deep character.
Nice dissolve.
So in case the army of little trained minions and the illegal use of the helicopter didn't clue you in, he's captured the master.
I'm starving.
You've my daughter to thank for this.
Please don't mention your daughter right after he suggested eating. I don't want to be even more convinced that you're fucking her the second the cameras are aimed at the other people in the scene. And I love how they aimed the master's hands at the ground. If only he managed to rocket jump into the ceiling while strapped in the chair. It'd be so bad it's still really bad, but funny.
You heard rumours of Harold Saxon, his disciples, his return.
Wow, when most daughters of rich bastards get into crazy religious bullshit, they usually buy them an e-meter or set them up with a cloning fund. How considerate of him. When I write my guide to crazy rich dads and daughters, I'm going to give these two a rave review. Incestful undertones, consistent but mostly ignorable. Like the dad's erection, I'm sure. Own private army, well-meaning but still can't shoot straight. And they're quiet, so you just need to pay them the going rate for extras. These two are going to get 3.7 secret families trapped in a basement out of 5.
Aye, aye. Here are the presents. I'm sorry, I couldn't afford much, but not for long. Not if President Obama ends the recession tonight.
Aww, no one's got the heart to tell him that he's not in Portland and Obama's financial stuff isn't really going to affect him that much. So Bernard Cribbins sits down to watch the Queen's speech. For all of you who don't live in the UK or very near it, every year the Queen gives a speech about the government's plans for the upcoming year as though they're her plans. The government writes the speech as well, so it's a bit like the State of the Union, but the person giving it has nothing to do with the government. Anyway, the enigmatic woman has broken into the speech and only Bernard can see or hear her. She's located in a secret base inside the Cyber Antichrist VR simulation, and because Franco Macaluso might be listening, she can't actually give Bernard any useful information. Who exactly is she? Well, she's one of the Time Lords. We see her later on, and allegedly she's supposed to be the Doctor's mother, and thankfully that's never confirmed on screen, so I don't need to bitch about that. In my opinion, she's someone who knew that she was only created so they can have their contractually obligated level of pointless in the episode. Joke's on them. They could have cut 95% of this episode and they still have more than enough. She tells Bernard that he needs to be ready to bear arms, so he picks up his old revolver. Just in time for the Doctor to chuck stones at his window. Though it sounds a lot like he breaks it. Apart from everything else, how the fuck did he know that Bernard was in that room? That's the only time we've even seen that room! So yes, the Doctor arrived, he carefully placed the TARDIS right where Donna might see it and have her brain fried. And check it out, in his haste to find the Doctor and save the whatever, the Doctor took the time to get changed and have his hair redone. Have you ever tried removing wood glue from your hair and resetting it? It takes hours. It's a good thing the guy has a time machine. It's just a pity that he constantly forgets how it could be used to avoid problems like this entire fucking episode. Anyway, I talked about how using the TARDIS he could have avoided this story beforehand, so on with the new complaints. Cribbins shows him the book that Donna bought him. And the Doctor remembers seeing the guy's face when he was with the Ood, and so decides to go find him. It turns out that when Donna saw the book, she subconsciously knew that he had something to do with the plot, and so bought it subconsciously knowing her grandfather would ask her about it. And then she'd look confused and not know why she bought it, so he'd mention it to the Doctor, who'd recognise him from the Ood vision and go to track down the guy because he's involved with the plot.
Oh, she's still fighting for it even now.
This is the wrong species, but you'll get the gist of it.
I love humans. All of us seeing patterns in things that aren't there.
Why not just assume it's a coincidence? Oh yeah, it's Russell T Davies. There are no coincidences. Or why not assume that the guy got rich on alien technology, like half the millionaires on the planet in Doctor Who? And he used some sort of alien psychic thing to sell the copies of his book to make money. There. Done. And it's sort of proof that he's evil. And it makes much more sense than the convoluted mess of logic on display here. And lastly, why didn't the Doctor just use his supposedly amazing memory to find the guy himself? He knew he was involved. This guy is not unfamous. It should have been easy. In a way, Bernard and the Doctor run off to the TARDIS because Donna's mother seems to think that she owns her father.
You can't come with me. Oh, you're not leaving me with her.
Dad!
And the Master's taken to wearing the new height of psycho Fruit Loop fashion. And also appears to be wearing eyeliner.
Oh, that's not from Earth.
Quite right. Humans aren't due to crossbreed archways with Tesla coils for another 500 years or so. Among the incest villains team are these two scientists who have spent all episode doing something that's probably very important and yet not quite interesting enough for me to give a shit about. And they head down to the basement to do something that I'll hopefully give a shit about. What is that? Well, reveal that they're aliens made from half makeup and half CGI. I say half CGI because the makeup turned out to be so bad that they went back and altered them in post, frame by frame. And they're still less convincing than a good old Star Trek bumpy-headed alien of the week. And also, these twats leave the main room of their boss's house, a base that they have infiltrated, and the first thing they do when they think there's no one around is to turn off their hollow emitter things. Why? Don't you give a shit about being caught? There's such a thing as security cameras. They might as well have had Indiana Jones change into an Uncle Sam costume and crap fake beard the second he was alone when he visited Berlin in The Last Crusade. Anyway, what are they doing? Trying to get the archway Tesla coil thing, which they call the gate, working so they can steal it. When they would probably find it much easier to steal when it's turned off. And if it's not actually working yet, then why is it randomly firing lightning bolts? Yeah, the lightning bolts might mean that it's not operational, but it's working. It's doing something. And it turns out that the Master's going to replace them as the leaders of Project Get the Thing That's Already Working-er. They're fine with this because any job worth doing is worth letting someone else do. But before he can begin work, the Master mentions how he'd like to eat the incest guy, so they give him a turkey. And he turns into a speed eater because the director misunderstood the script. I'm not joking. Blah 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 blah, made up science, blah 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 blah, check off stupid as fuck security system, blah 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 blah, information about the gate thing, blah 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 blah.
But what do you want it for?
We calculate that if this device can be fully repaired by your good self, it can restore the body forever.
Very clever. He realizes incest will officially stop being weird once you've been together for 80,000 years.
Abigail. It means bringer of joy.
Diamanda. It means tired of non sequiturs and shit writing. So, the Master does a loud sniff as the TARDIS lands. Now, he could be smelling it, but since they dubbed the sound of the landing over the sniff, it looks like he hears with his nose. So hilarious. Anyway, as the Doctor and Bernard Cribbins run around the house, as two guys in a house with its own private army kinda usually don't, the Master gets busy doing stuff in a computer that makes it do things that computers don't actually do in real life. Apparently, everyone thinks this shit on screen means something.
The man's a miracle. All the systems are slotting back into place. Shattered threads have harmonized, the fiber links densified, multiple overshots, triplicate.
General West, Jackson has identified the seventh symbol.
Nice game. Hello.
Oh, and just so you know, if you find an alien on Earth and turn off their hollow emitter, that means they're now working for you. So the Master manages to get the gate working. I'm assuming that the red light on his computer and the mood lighting in the room was programmed in by him as a joke while he did his stuff, because why the fuck would someone choose to have the screen goes red and the lights go down as a sign that their project succeeded?
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Excellent.
I've always wanted to meet Jay Davison.
The visitor will be restrained.
What? But I repaired it.
I'm not an idiot. Don't let him anywhere near that thing.
If you don't trust him, then why did you let him program it? If he's gonna fuck you over, he'll do it in the programming part. This is a bit like letting Dr. Doom design and build a computer without your supervision, and then you refusing to let him press the power button.
I have no doubt you've laid traps. Perhaps explosives. A means of escape. Murder. But everything you've done to the gate will be checked and double-checked before anyone stands inside.
Okay, good, uncommonly sensible, but how? Your people couldn't get it working. Even with the help of two aliens, they couldn't fix it. How the fuck are you gonna check if the computery thing that you don't understand is programmed to kill the person who stands in it, or turn the world's trees into kittens, or anything else? You are no better off than you were before he began. In fact, you might be worse off. At least beforehand, you had a good idea that there wasn't any fucking traps in it. So, because the Doctor knows everything until the writer decides otherwise, he's never come across this race before.
Who were you, though? Because I met someone like you. He was brilliant, but he was little and red.
Even if he wasn't in Voyage of the Damned, he wouldn't have been brilliant. He hung around and killed himself using his badly designed cyborg body. That's it. Brilliant suggests that he did something involving skill or talent. So after some talking with the aliens, the Doctor works out what the Master's plan is, and it's a terrible plan indeed. The device sends the medical template of a single being across a planet in order to make the whole planet just like the template. So the Master's going to be the template. Now, it's described as a medical device, but that's as far from a medical device as you can get. It could be that someone's health could be transmitted across the planet healing everyone, I guess. But the dialogue flat out states that the thing's purpose is to turn everyone into the template. And the Master hasn't fucked around with it at all. So this isn't just stupid in the episode, but stupid in the fictional universe as well. This device is fucking stupid! And why is it called the Gate? Yes, as we see later on, it could be messed with to be used as a gate. But why the fuck would you name it after something that I can possibly do? It's a bit like calling a plane a car, because it can drive. Anyway, it's time for Obama to make his address to end the recession. Because in Doctor Who, the US president gets to address the whole world like the evil overlord of the planet that silly people tend to think he is. And so we can get embarrassing shots of a guy pretending to be Obama. If Obama had much shorter hair. You couldn't have even got a guy with roughly the same hair length.
I'd like to speak briefly about the state of our economy.
And how is this supposed to fix the world's economy? Speeches don't work that way! Calm down, calm down, calm down, calm down. You don't want to go wandering in the streets and end up killing the first person who looks like a cast member. Again. So, the Master uses lightning to blast off the straitjacket. Somehow. I'm no expert, but I think the heat alone from the lightning that would destroy a straitjacket would probably injure other people in the room. To say nothing about the heat that happens when he blasts off. And isn't it amazing he's not setting fire to things this time? Apparently his lightning only does that when there's nothing flammable around. And lastly, how much funnier would it have been if he misjudged that jump and knocked himself out on the ceiling?
Homeless, was I? Destitute and dying? Well, look at me now!
You're an overacting twat in front of a green screen. It's not an improvement. Oh, it's back. The fire's back. I guess the floor wasn't flammable after all. And everyone's covering their faces because the gate's affecting them. Why? Because if they didn't, it'd be even more obvious that the poor bastard they dragged off the street to play Obama isn't Obama. I imagine they found him in a scene quite similar to that bit in Ed Wood where they found the replacement Bela Lugosi. Oh my god, I totally found someone who looks just like Obama if I'm wearing shades, squint, only look at his right ear, and it's at night. What are you waiting for? Cast him! So the Doctor uses radiation shielding to save Bernard Cribbins. He used a mixing desk to make radiation shielding protect him from alien technology that might as well be magic. Fine, good. Let's have the human technology be magic too. I mean, we have a man who turns into Frank Langella from Masters of the Universe and travels via lightning. Let's go mad! So everyone on the planet's seeing the Master laughing. The same laugh, over and over again. Okay, his vision's clearly of a small shooting budget. But why are the people dreaming of this for weeks beforehand? And really, couldn't you guys have fucking filmed more than one laughing shot? So, ignoring what's going on for a second because, well, you would too if you had to write this. Apart from the fact that he's evil, why does the guy's private army have face mask things? Well, maybe because most villains in New Who have to have them to save on makeup and they just feel left out. But no, that's not officially the reason. It's so they can save on special effects when this happens. This is like Chris Cunningham was shot in the head and then tried to make something for children. And if you don't know who Chris Cunningham is, he directed this. So, Donna's immune to all this because back in Journey's End, whose day will no doubt come, Donna managed to, in a figurative sense, become the Doctor. In order to save her life, the Doctor had to destroy all her memories of what happened, including all memories of him. Why? Fuck knows, and he kept saying that if she remembers for just a moment, then her mind will burn and she will die.
Her mind will burn and she will die.
So will she? Fuck no! Because she's currently remembering shit, and New Who is the unparalleled king of promising your audience stuff and then flat out lying to them. Especially when it makes no fucking sense.
What is it? What have you done, you monster?
Oh, I'm sorry, are you talking to me? Or to me? Or to me?
So yeah, everyone's the Master now. I had no idea that haircuts and stubble were genetic. Even if they were identically copying him, then why is everyone's hair bleached? That's roughly as stupid as transmitting his clothing, which I'd like to point out that you didn't do.
I'm President. President of the United States!
Oh, congratulations, you are everyone else as well. So, does anyone want to know the genesis of the story idea? At least what I'm sure was the genesis? Well, it was this line.
There is no human race. There is only the Master Race.
No, I'm calling it. Russell came up with that line and reverse engineered the story to lead up to it. Why? Because it's the sort of stupid thinking that comes from the mind of a man who wanted to have a Star Trek Enterprise Doctor Who crossover. Seriously, it's in the writer's tale. Russell is a good writer, when he has limits. His real-world dramas that he made his name on gave him limits of what he could do. With sci-fi, he has none. Now, old Who would have had separate head writers and producers so they could rein each other in. Russell T Davies had nothing like that, so his most idiotic whims, such as pigmen and Daleks inserting humans into their anuses, got forced into the series. Yes, I said they were his ideas. Because he routinely gave writers a surreal shopping list of things that he wanted to have in an episode, and then he'd do severe rewrites of the script. Even if they managed to include all of them. The pigmen and the Dalek-human hybrid from Daleks in Manhattan were not Helen Rayner's mistakes. They were his. If he had any sort of restraining factor except possibly budget, then shit like this wouldn't have happened. Now, Moffat has the same lack of restraint, and I'm not saying his ideas are any better because of it. Well, maybe they are a bit, but Moffat is just as unrestrained, and his bad ideas get through just as much as Russell's. Moffat, however, didn't give the world this shit. Anyway, back to the narrator, Timothy Dalton as Rassilon. It turns out that he's been telling this story to all of the Time Lords just off screen. In the Phantom Zone. Why? Why and why? For no real reason.
For the end of time itself!
And when did every single Time Lord join the Prydonian chapter? Red is worn by Prydonians. Yeah, it's cool, but the Patraxes get fucking heliotrope. Much more pimp. Patraxes for life. And so that's the end of part 1. What can I say? Well, it's very not good. Very, very, very not good. Take the entire length of the human genome and replace the letters with very not good. And replace it for infinity and you've probably got about a quarter of how fucking not good it is. On the plus side, I never have to see this again. Stay tuned for part 2. It's just as bad.